Well, hi again, everybody, and welcome to another episode of 100 Yards of Football. I'm Harper LaBelle. Our producer today is Logan Landers. Vincent Turner's not able to be with us. Normally, we would have Vincent on with the guests that we have today. He's going to be just him, just me. And today's guest is Matt Bahr. 17 years in the National Football League. He played at Penn State University. He's from just outside of Pittsburgh, where he grew up, Philadelphia. And what a career, what a story. What an amazing athletic endeavor that he's been a part of. And you're going to find out a little bit more about him as we proceed. Matt, welcome to the show. I know you just had a birthday, so happy birthday to you just a couple of days ago. Belated birthday, that is, but welcome.
Well, I try to celebrate my birthday on the 4th of July anyway. It's a lot more fun.
More than the 6th, right? Generally, it's the 6th, but you go back a couple of days and you get to be, 68 now or 69?
69.
69. Well, congratulations. It's a nice plateau. And Matt, your life begins back in 1956. You're part of the Bahr family. Your father was a really good athlete. Let's talk a little bit about your background when you're growing up. He was a soccer player, one of the best here in America, right? He was one of these profound early soccer stars in a time, at least in my understanding, when soccer was beginning to grow as a sport and carry itself into the next generation for American families.
Well, my dad grew up in a working neighborhood in Philadelphia, the textile area where all the textile mills and whatnot were. So there were a lot of low-income workers there. And basically for him, he remembers driving with his father across country looking for work during the Depression. So a lot of his motivations were money oriented and how to preserve it because he knew what it was like growing up in the Depression. That area of Philadelphia, though, they had a boys club called Lighthouse. And the Lighthouse organization was to help some of the people who were down on their luck during that time for food and clothing and things like that. But the boys club at one point had 24,000 members. The reason I say this is he remembers growing up, you played soccer in the fall, you played baseball in the spring, and all sports at all times of the year. And the field that they had, if you wanted to play with the big kids, you had to get better. And consequently, you played baseball and soccer primarily in that neighborhood with the boys, and it just went on all day, all year long. That being said, that boys club produced members of the U.S. national team for World Cup and the Olympics to every one that we had until the 70s. Wow. And he was that good even as a youth player. So he got drafted by baseball with St. Louis, I think it was. He was a catcher. He liked being involved. But with soccer, he played in this famous game in 1950, in the 50 World Cup. It was in Brazil, and they beat the best team in the world, England, 1-0, in what's considered the greatest upset of all time in the soccer world. And in England, they didn't believe the score, and the team went home in shame. In the U.S., the team just went home, and my mom picked him up at the train station or the bus station, however it was he arrived. It really didn't mean anything. Flash forward the next two, Manchester United, they would always do a soccer tour of the United States. And they'd go to the big cities, St. Louis, New York, Philadelphia, Chicago type of thing. When they came to Philadelphia after the World Cup, those next couple years, instead of playing at one of the big baseball stadiums, Shibe Park or Connie Mack Stadium, they built a little stadium at that boys club to recruit my father to play for Man U. And he turned them down 2 years in a row because he couldn't afford, he was just raising a family, just starting a family. He couldn't afford to go to England to play professional soccer. So that's why when we grew up, we watched him play, or we were at many of his games when he played in the pro leagues around Philadelphia, New York, and Canada. but we never saw him play. We were at the games, but we were under the stands playing soccer or whatever, playing games. That's where he wanted us to be. So we grew up in the environment. Whatever sports in season, play it, be active. They were both teachers, so you would get a good education at the same time. And one of the things that kind of propelled all of us through what we did in athletics was because, my father, as you said, was maybe one of the greatest. I don't know if he was the best, but I know there was none better. He played on every national team the United States had for 11 years and played every minute of every game. If you talk about that amongst your peers, name me anybody today who was in that kind of category. So that's what we found out as we got older. I didn't know we were just around a lot of great athletes all the time. Pele I have pictures of my mom dancing with Pele at different events, all these guys coming over the house. And again, to give you an idea of the import of this game, I think when they went on sabbatical to Europe, they bought a Volkswagen Bug and they traveled around the first city. Now, this was in the 70s. Now, this is 25 years after the 1950 World Cup. The first city they went to, somebody found out, this was Walt Barr. He had the assist on the goal that beat England in 1950. For them, it became a party in every city they went to all over Europe, except England, because Walt Barr was coming into town. You just don't see that here, but they they were able to extend their trip a lot longer because they never had to stay in a hotel. The mayor would call ahead to the next city, and that mayor, and they'd have another big party when they would arrive. So flash forward to with my brothers, my dad had always advocated soccer players kicking footballs, even though they never pushed us into any one sport. We naturally gravitated to soccer, but we're all good in different sports. Trouble was, as you know, in the U.S., soccer and football are both in the fall. We never wanted to give up soccer to kick footballs. And it took my oldest brother, Casey, was not allowed to do it. And I don't know if you see it there. Casey also, I think he was drafted by a baseball team, but he also played in the 72 Olympics and was sneaking over the fence when the shooting started with Black September.
Matt, my understanding, Casey is your oldest brother, and then Chris and you, right? You're the youngest of three. Is that correct?
I'm the youngest of three boys, and then I have a younger sister, Davies, and she was probably the best athlete in the family.
Okay. And let me ask you, before I go into your specific career, when was you said your father played about 11 years? Is that correct? Of professional soccer?
He did play 11 years. How
old were you when he was done? Do you remember that?
Well, you never, in that world, you're never really done. For the national team, he was probably done. He was in the 48 Olympics that was in England. That I wish I knew more of the stories there, where they asked every national team coming to the Olympics to bring something, because England was still under rations after World War II, and like one team brought 10,000 eggs. Another team brought towels for all the athletes. But I would have to say from probably 48 to 60, give or take.
You weren't born until
56.
So you were just a little weezer when he was done.
When he was playing for the national teams, but he still played pro ball.
He kept playing club games and all that. You got to see that, but in front of a crowd and all that. That ended by the time you were a teenager, pretty much. Is that fairly accurate?
Yeah, but the crowds were the type of crowds that stood around the field. Unless they were going to another country where they they had stands. These crowds were at a Central Park type of location where you would have a couple thousand people just standing around the perimeter of the field.
Yeah, I'm with you. What about the trip to Europe? Were you old enough to go on those with him?
Oh no, they they got rid of us. You know, it's so 70s. I guess the youngest would have been 10 or 12, so that's old enough.
Okay.
If there's some adult nearby.
Yeah. Well, obviously, a different pitch, a different type of football. And you learned to play that. When did you start kicking a ball? 2, 3, right? Were you?
We would play all balls like kids of that time because of our family. Our house was kind of just outside Northeast Philadelphia is where I grew up.
Okay.
And we had every ball, bat, racket, glove known to man in our garage. So we kind of became sports central for the neighborhood. And, I think there was a graveyard nearby with all flat stones, so we could play baseball there. Football was a little dicey. But, you just played sports as they came up, and
Yep.
There was only a couple of kids, you made up whatever sport.
Catch as catch can is the way I've heard it. You did
Yep.
all of that, right?
Yep.
Then high school comes in for you. Now, your brothers were beforehand. I had read that you would practice with the team on Thursday for football and then play in the game on Friday, but you were doing soccer at the same time, right? So
Correct.
you're multiple games every week for all throughout your high school days, correct?
Yes, they never overlapped. It was Tuesday night. Neshaminy had a pretty good football program, and this high school was big. There were 4,000 kids in 3 grades, and my class, I think, was 1,056, and that was the smallest high school class in 10 years
Wow.
that they had there. So it was a lot of soccer had 2 fields to themselves. So it was big enough for all that. And yeah, because of the lights of the stadium, I'd practice with the football team on Tuesday night and play on Friday night. And like with all things, if they needed you, they made the accommodations rather than just have someone sit around.
Well, and your brother, was it Chris or Casey that didn't get the same luxury of being able to either practice or play football and soccer at the same time of the year? Was
Correct.
that problem?
And even with Casey, he went to the Naval Academy. They wouldn't allow him to play baseball. And they were in complete opposite seasons. I'm not quite sure what the reason was, but you could only play one sport at the academy at that time. And Chris had to go through a lot of conflict, both in high school and later in college with Joe Paterno to be able to play, because we were all recruited, or Chris and I were both recruited to play soccer and football.
Okay. And that has to be a kind of a semi-blessing for the soccer coaches at Penn State, knowing that if you could make the football team, you'd actually open up a scholarship or at least free up some money for another player. Is that fair?
It was kind of the other way around. I was there primarily to play soccer, and football
Okay.
was going to be just extra.
Was soccer a full scholarship back then?
Yes.
Okay.
But at the schools that recruited me, I really wanted to go to the Naval Academy, and I got an appointment, but at like a week or so before plebe summer, they fired the soccer coach. And I called the academy and said, who's the new coach going to be? And they said, you don't, just as they should, you don't need to know. And I said, well, I don't need to go. And I then accepted the offer that Penn State had made and went there.
There's a very small amount of athlete that would turn down the Naval Academy after already being given an appointment. Is that?
Oh, I was set. We knew the head of the Nuki department at the time, and I was wanting to be a systems engineer. Yeah, it's
Really?
changed a little bit.
Yeah.
Put that
Yeah.
picture back up.
Go ahead. Yep.
The soccer field, the soccer fields were where those tennis courts and the football field, the practice football field you see over there.
Okay.
Because we would go up right out those doors, and part of the workout was sprinting up the hill, unless they're the fields all the way in the back, in the back central of that picture.
Well, the school picture
looks
that I
about
found
right.
here, folks that are watching will know that the school itself and its buildings are in the upper right-hand corner, right?
So in the upper right-hand corner, if you look out, you can see kind of the outline of a field. Maybe that's where the soccer fields were, or
okay.
still are.
Well, one luxury that you had there in high school is you weren't landlocked, right? There was plenty of room.
Oh, we had lots of room, and it was as I said, it was a big school. The 1A hall was like a big wide open bowl like this, and we could run indoor track. It was a quarter of a mile long, so you could run more or less in a straight line for a quarter of a mile.
Did you have a muscle car, a BMW right off the factory line? Come on, tell me what
No
the
cars.
car,
No.
the vehicle was of choice back in your
My
day.
first car was my end of my fourth year of college.
Really?
Yeah, when I went to play pro soccer, I brought a 1972. So this was 78. 78.
Right.
The 1972 Buick Centurion, 8 cylinders, and this thing was built like a tank.
You got about 9 miles to the gallon, right? Or was it 8?
Oh, it didn't like altitude or miles.
Okay.
The altitude made it struggle, and this thing was built like a tank, and not for any other reason. When I was finished with the car, I gave it to the captain of the soccer team, and they kept passing it down to the future captains of the soccer team at Penn State each year. And, 10 years later, I said, "What happened to the car? Did it stop running?" Nah, it got hit by a bus.
Oh,
it got T-boned by a bus and folded in half.
Oh my
God. I said, "Did it stop running?" No, it still ran, but you could only drive it in a circle.
What color was it, Matt?
I have no idea. I do know I negotiated down to $600, so it was a good price.
Did you have AM only, or did you have a 8-track? What was
it had AM and FM.
How about that?
No 8-track. I did want to buy a car with an 8-track and stock it up, because we all have those stories. Waiting for it to click channels.
Yep. The rule was that the driver always had control of the tunes, but it was the passenger that either found the new radio station or looked for a better song while we were, enjoying the rest of the ride.
But that car was great. Trucks got out of your way when you put on the turn signal.
Oh my gosh!
Nothing was going to hurt it. It was a beast.
Well, the fact that you valued it enough to pass it down to the future captains of Penn State.
How could you sell it? Who would you sell it to?
The only guy on campus that didn't have a car like you up until that point.
Didn't need one. Could walk everywhere.
Were you a bike guy? Did you have like a 10-speed that was, how'd you get to school?
One of the professional teams I played for in soccer gave me a testimonial, and they gave me a bike with all custom, like gold parts and whatnot, because the owner of the team was a bicycle manufacturer. It got promptly stolen when I was at Pitt.
How about that? Yeah.
Locks didn't work.
My 10-speed Schwinn was stolen the second day of campus life for me in college, and I found it at my senior year. Somebody had stolen it and passed it along, so I couldn't claim it as mine, though. The local police said the proof was in my hands, and I had to show paperwork that it was my bike, even though there was a little.
Who has paperwork on a bicycle?
Well, my parents had it registered, so the city of Los Angeles had a little sticker that they put on there, and I go, "I'm from California." They look, they go, "That's not enough, kid. Get out of here." Offer the guy that has the bike now, give him $20 for it. Maybe you'll get it back.
The only bikes I had was as a kid, the little bikes, and you put the bubblegum cards in the spokes.
Absolutely. Yeah, your
Uh,
baseball card collection
yeah.
was usually ruined because of that. All right, talk about your Penn State days. High
Well,
school was good enough for you to get to the place where you can play in college, but that's not an easy gig for a kicker, especially if you're not the most desired number one guy.
well, Penn State, as I said, Chris broke ground for me with Joe Paterno, and the the thing about it is they would schedule both practices a little bit to accommodate me. So when I was kicking, the 3 years I was kicking for Penn State, actually it only happened in 2 of the years because I was a 5-year red shirt. I played my 4 years of soccer eligibility, got drafted in pro soccer, played pro soccer in the spring, and then came back in the fall to play amateur football. So you could play pro in one sport and amateur in another. But when I was playing both soccer and football at Penn State, we would have a Friday night soccer game, and the university would fly me to wherever the football team was playing the next morning. Joe Paterno rightly hated that because you got beat up a little bit in a soccer game sometimes, and I wasn't in the best of physical condition when I got to the football game the next afternoon. And he'd regularly call me in his office and say, "Hey, Matt, we got to knock this off. You got to make a choice." That's how Joe
Yeah.
Paterno really taught me a lot about being a successful athlete, which means being a successful off the field person on top of it. And I know I'm jumping around a little bit, but I'd be on the practice field with a center and a holder, and Penn State has several fields, so you might be 200-300 yards away from where Joe was even hanging out. I'd be kicking with my center and holder. I'd miss one, and I'd hear that voice come screeching over the wind. "Hey, Ba, you stink. Either kick the ball or get out of here." Oh, and he had that New York accent.
Yeah. Yeah.
I got goosebumps right now, even thinking about it, even hearing that voice. It's like, my God, what do I have to do to please this son of a gun?
He
And
has eyes everywhere, right, Matt?
well, he saw everything, and it made you. And I know a lot of coaches pay lip service to this, and you know this from your own playing, but he knew what your best was, and he expected you to get better. And I think the first one who said, "Look, there's no way you can stay the same in practice. So when you start on the field to practice, you're either getting better or you're getting worse. There's absolutely no physical way you can remain the same person afterwards. So practice to get better."
Yeah.
And he wasn't one of those coaches, "Oh, well, he'll make it on Saturday. He'll make the catch. He won't fumble the ball during practice." If you fumbled the ball or dropped the catch or missed kicks, you weren't kicking on Saturday, because if he can't count on you during the week, how can he count on you on game time?
Right.
So here he calls me in his office, say, "We got to cut this nonsense out." And I'd say, "You're right, Coach. I don't know why you put up with it for this long, but I've got to choose soccer, because in soccer I could bump into people, I could knock them down, take the ball, be a physical part of the game. With kicking, it's like, unless there's a breakdown, it's like putting. You're trying to put the same stroke on the same ball the same way to get the same result." And I meant it. I sincerely was surprised he put up with it. But as I was leaving the office, he'd go, "Hey, Matt, wait a minute. Maybe we can work something out." And, I got to continue to kick footballs.
How about that?
But
Well, hey, real quick,
I would start with the place kicking at the beginning of practice at football. Then I'd jog over to soccer practice. And if they wanted to do field goals with the team, they would schedule field goals at the very end of football practice, because soccer practice didn't last as long.
I understood. And you were a defender, is that correct? I read you were a defender.
No, in high school, I was a forward at Penn State. I was a midfielder. I did a lot of they call it the dirty work, not a dirty player, but I worked hard to get the ball, to win the ball at midfield, and then pass it to the playmakers, the goal scorers, and whatnot. But I did a lot of the grunt work, if you will, and I scored goals, but I wasn't a goal scorer. You know the difference.
Yeah.
Oh God, that's when I was playing professional soccer. I was the 8th pick of the first round for the Caribous of Colorado. They played 1 year. That uniform was voted consistently the ugliest uniform ever.
What colors are we looking at here in black and
It
white?
was like brown and tan with the Western fringe around you.
Okay.
So you look like a belly dancer. On my first pro game, they had spelt my name wrong on the back, Bhar.
Yep.
I didn't tell anyone. I didn't correct them. I said, I'm just as happy to play with the wrong name on the back of the jersey.
On a bad jersey, you don't really care much, right? It just
we had to wear on the road. We had to wear 10-gallon hats on the plane. It looks as ridiculous as it sounds. Looking at all these international soccer players coming in their custom-made jacket and their cowboy hat.
Did you play a mile high?
Yep. And even if we got a good crowd of 15, 20,000 people,
it looked empty.
Yep. But boy, once you got in condition in Denver, whenever you went anywhere else, you felt like a god.
Yeah. Isn't that amazing?
So
yeah. You go back to sea level anywhere else, and you've run as much as anybody else, and they're gassed, and you're going, okay,
let's
finish.
Bring me more. Yep. It was a good experience. And that was, as I said, when I finished my soccer eligibility, I could go and play pro soccer, amateur football the next season, pro soccer the next season. Then I got drafted that spring and ended up with the Steelers.
Well, stick with me with soccer for a second, because I'm not going back too far, but I do want to ask a little bit about signing as a professional athlete while you're still in college, as you mentioned earlier, and really being a two-sport guy, and one of them professional, one amateur. There has to be a little bit of maturity. I mean, you could pay for the beer at the party, I would imagine, when you went back to school, but signing a contract, negotiating, looking at some of the facilities, and being just a kid and a rookie and around grown men, I would imagine there's a little bit of wisdom that you gained that would have helped your professional football career a little bit later on, in ways that I recognize this. I think I've been here before, even though I haven't been in the same stadium. I understand this situation. Tell me a little bit about how you developed and how soccer helped you be a better football player.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head, Harper. When you played college football, when you played back at Notre Dame, was it Notre Dame?
Notre Dame High School, you bet.
That's how do you recognize somebody from Notre Dame?
I don't know.
They'll tell you.
They'll tell you. That's right. Yeah. How do you know I'm the best jet fighter pilot in the world? Yeah, someone's going to share that with you. Great, good call. Good call.
I had the advantage of a couple of two things at least. I played for a lot of great coaches, and I mean Hall of Fame coaches, and this includes my father. I've been around a lot of great players. I mean, just hanging out with them and got to meet a lot of them, again, because of my father and the situations I was in. One thing they all kind of had in common was a certain perspective on the game and life as it was. You're not looking for Arnold Palmer, what he's doing off the course, but the way he represents himself on the course and off the course are things to be emulated. I've been with Pele where he's in an event with 5,000-6,000 people. He's at the dais, and he doesn't get a bite to eat. He's smiling and laughing and engaging with the fans who are coming up, and never once did he look like he was put out by any of it. And I've been surrounded by a lot of those people through my entire life, and even with teammates. Franco Harris, that whole team, my rookie year, I think they should all be in the Hall of Fame, but Franco Harris, Terry Bradshaw, Mel Blount, Elsie Greenwood, Joe Green, how many of them, Lynn Swan, John Stallworth? It was a team of leaders. The entire team were guys you could learn from. And you learn from both on and off the field and athletically, what they're doing, the extra things that they do to help the team win. I don't know if I said it quite correctly, but when I went from college soccer to the pro soccer, now I'm playing with, as you said, a lot of men, a lot of older guys who have played soccer, pro soccer all their lives. I didn't necessarily enjoy pro soccer. I still was, let's go Penn State, let's go team, a naively enthusiastic, if you will.
Yeah.
When I got drafted by the Steelers, after being that, I go, okay, I was well paid as an American soccer player, but I'd be a lot more well paid as an American football player.
Sure.
So I get to that team, and it wasn't like it was rah-rah Steelers. It was, what can you do? You're now being paid. You're a professional. What can you do to make the team better? What can you do to make your teammates better? And that's what I found out about all these great players. They were great because they gave their best effort. And Mel Blount didn't expect me, or Jack Lambert didn't expect me to play like Jack Lambert. But he did expect me to play up to the best of my ability. And you think back to Joe Paterno getting better each day. But these guys, it's what can you do to help the team win? And that's why I jumped in on tackles. I mean, my only maybe professional regret was I got to do a lot. I got to tackle people. I got to catch a ball, punt, do lots of different things. But the one thing I always wanted to do was recover a fumble. And so whenever there was a hog pile on a kickoff, you'd see me coming in late, 5-10 seconds after the pile's there, and I'd dive on top and start digging my way to the bottom. I got my hand on the ball maybe 3 times. I mean, I think you recovered a fumble or two in your career. What's that like? That's got to be awesome.
I have a game ball that I gave it to myself because we ended up losing the game, but I got to keep the fumble recovery.
You kept the fumble? So tell me the situation.
Yep. I
made
my own memory, if you will, Matt. I did that. There's some people that say, biting, scratching, clawing, and every orifice.
There's no rules in the hog pile.
No. But it's quick. It doesn't last for a long while. And really, it's just if you're close enough to where you're gripping the ball, you sure don't want to be the one that loses it, right? So you give everything you have to hold on to it and keep it and make sure your team gets possession. Because there's an instant where you jump up, and if it's a close game or it's a real important play, your ability to change momentum or being a part of that is pretty cool. Hey, I wanted to ask you something too. Another specific regarding you. Maybe not in high school so much, but was there a specific special teams coach at Penn State, or were you on your own and you kind of had to do your own practice and work on your own things? I don't think that there was a real big budget back in those days. There was a coach that ran kickoff and field goal team, but field goal block. But did they leave you alone and just kick the ball?
It's more or less, because no one really, other than my father or another soccer player, knew what you were basically doing when you were kicking. But it's like any athletic endeavor. When you teach a kid to throw a baseball, you teach them to grip the ball lightly, not squeeze it as hard as you can. Step at the target and let it go at the target. Don't try to aim it. Don't try to throw the ball into the glove. Throw it at the glove. And that's kind of the way it was for place kicking when I would teach kickers. Head down, follow through. 2 simple swing thoughts. But get your whole body through the ball, your head down, an athletic position, try to stay on your feet, and go through at your target. That's so sure. They had coaches who would time the operation to make sure things like that. But even in the pros, they really never had anybody who coached the kicker, if you will, because
Sure.
it wasn't there. But when I don't know what it was when you first started. The Steelers, I think, were the last team to get a special teams coach, but usually it was one coach got one team. So the defensive line coach would also be coaching kickoff coverage, which meant he was responsible to make sure they had 11 guys out there, and if someone got hurt, who the sub was. And it wasn't too much of a burden, 6 special teams, and they had 6 coaches who coached each one of them. But no, there was no, it was what you would expect. Go run a lap. Go do something.
Right. Look like you're busy. Stay busy. Hey, would you work on? Okay, today I'm gonna work. I'm gonna go back every 5 yards. I'm gonna switch hash marks. But today I want to hit the right upright, and then tomorrow I want to hit the left upright. No,
Never work on bad habits.
From an accuracy perspective, I want to make sure.
That's from an accuracy standpoint. The thing I would work on is hit it right up that center pipe.
Okay.
So if they're your goalposts, in practice, I'm trying to split the uprights every time right down the pipe. And normally, and again, most kickers have problems with practice habits. I would never hit more than 1 or 2 balls from any one location, because in a game, you're only getting one shot. On top of that, I wouldn't hit a lot, because in a game, you might be out there 6 times in a 3-hour period. So you would practice quality over quantity. To do multiple repetition only locks in bad habits. You want to make, if you're only taking 12 to 18 kicks, which is basically what I did in practice, make them all and put them right over the thing. And so I would go up one hash, across the middle, and back down the other hash, or zigzag back and zigzag up, but never more than 1 or 2 kicks from each spot, usually 1, because in a game, you're always moving.
Matt, you just became my favorite kicker of all time. I can't tell you how many times I've had to deal with it, mostly punters though, but a kicker that goes, 1 more, let's just get 1 more. And we've done 8 from the same spot, and we do it. And it just,
but you just did long snapping, right?
Long and short, and then a backup tight end. I could drop a ball and miss a block as good as anybody, Matt. You know that.
Well, that was also another thing. The only thing I would do that was not extraordinary in any way, but usually at the end of the practice session, they would just throw a ball somewhere, and it was a hurry up field goal, 10 seconds left.
Clock is ticking. Field now. Ball's on the 42. Right. Move it. Yep.
And it's 10 seconds for the ball to move from the snapper, not 10 seconds to when the ball has to be up in the air. And there's a lot more time than you think in that 10 seconds. But it was just a hurry up field goal, so you didn't have to set up the same way. You didn't always have it on the hash. It was in the middle of the field somewhere to get. Did you like when the holder was exactly the same distance, the hands? Did that make it easier for you to get the laces up on your snaps?
I'll be candid. I don't know whether or not they were the same every time. It was up to them. But if it was the same, then my laces were pretty much always facing out. That was
because the centers today, Steve Diassi, if you guys don't know, Harper and I are both with this advisors with Harvard Health Study, and that's a great example of the teamwork that I was talking about. I might not be as good as someone over here, but everyone's working towards the same goal to make the whole group better. But Steve Diassi, who was part of that, he was the first one who showed me that we could get the laces up most of the time when it hits the holder's hand.
Yeah.
And if we had a different holder, caught the ball at a different spot, he would make the adjustment. And you can't imagine how much easier that is. And the centers and the holders today, it's rare that you see the holder have to turn the ball, spin it at all, because the laces are just perfect.
Yep.
Which I'm very jealous of.
Yeah. In the field conditions, we'll talk about that a little bit. I had one more college-related question in terms of your maturity, your wisdom, your understanding of the game. I know that now, what can you get? 105,000 at Beaver Stadium there at Penn State. What was the capacity back then, and how many really big games that you kind of pinch yourself? You look around before the game starts and go, "This is going to be amazing. We're going to the Big House today, or we're going to play at Pitt today, or we're going to do something. This is going to be a really big game." And how did that help prepare you for some of the later in your life big moments that you're going to have from an NFL perspective?
Well, I think that also goes back to high school. And at Neshaminy, I think we had 15,000 seats for the games, and we would get that. So it was always fun playing in front of a lot of people. And at Penn State, I want to say it was 90,000 at that time, could have been. And the stadium didn't really matter the number of people. It was usually the conditions on the field, windy, icy, and things like that.
Sure.
But I've always enjoyed the people, and it was also good practice. Don't look up. When you hit the ball, keep your head down. The crowd will let you know whether you made it or missed it, whether it's home or away. And that was a lesson that served me well. Concentrate on the task at hand. People would often say you're only as good as your next kick, or excuse me, you're only as good as your last kick. No, you're only as good as your next kick. That's the only one that you can prepare for. Whether you made the last one or missed the last one is inconsequential to what you're doing on the kick coming up. So prepare for that one. If you missed it, you missed it. Move on, because you got to get ready for the next one.
Well, speaking of going on to the next one, talk about this year that I can't find a rhyme or reason for. You're done at Penn State in 78. You go play professional soccer in 79. Was there a year without football? And then the Steelers want you. What are they, a 6th round? For you to be a draft pick after being out a year, that to me.
No, it was continuous.
Okay.
70. Yeah, the 78 season, I had played. So start at the beginning of 78. Professional soccer was played in the spring.
Yep.
In the old NASL. And so I played professional soccer in the spring of 78. In the fall of 78, I played for Penn State, and we lost to Alabama in the championship game. That's one, like my father's game in the World Cup. I believe we were the far superior team in that game against Alabama, but we lost. Bear Bryant outcoached Joe. They outplayed us, and we were a really good team. We had a lot of NFL players come out of it, a lot of good athletes, but we lost. And my dad was part of a big upset. Alabama was the upset, and so when go all the way forward to the Giants, playing the 49ers in the championship game, they were the overwhelming favorite. They had beaten us during the season. And the Buffalo Bills in the Super Bowl, they had beaten us during the season, and they just blew out the Raiders 50 some odd to 3. We were underdogs in both of those games. So I was prepared for the big stadiums and the big moments, and also knowing that that's the beauty of sports. If the better team always won, they wouldn't play the game.
Yeah.
So, and I never went into any game thinking I'm going to get killed. We're going to get, I wanted to win. You always want to win.
Well, you get drafted by the Steelers, and this is
that's what I said. Professional soccer in the spring of '78, amateur football in the fall of '78, professional soccer in the spring of '79. But I played for a team called the Pennsylvania Stoners. It was in the ASL, a different pro league. That's where I got my bicycle. And during that season, I got drafted by the Steelers and went to mini camp and then training camp in that same '79. And I thought about, after that Super Bowl, do I want to play pro soccer again in the spring? Because the contracts we had, you weren't allowed to do dangerous sports. And I didn't consider like soccer or hang gliding or snow skiing a dangerous sport.
Right. Oh my gosh. Hey, seriously, I'm a stoner. Yeah, you got to go around telling everybody and signing autographs that I'm the stoner.
I'm pretty sure it had to do with Keystone State, but I'm sure a lot of my teammates took it literally.
Yeah, there's a little Jeff Spicoli in everybody that says, "Come on, man, you couldn't have picked a better name than that." My goodness. But okay, so you're done there. You get drafted by the Steelers, and you mentioned a bunch of names earlier. I can't think of others other than maybe Jack Ham. You mentioned Lambert, Andy Russell, Mean Joe Green. The whole defensive team is in the
Mike Webster, center, Iron Mike, and John
absolutely.
Cole.
And all these guys are well-seasoned vets. You go to the fourth of their 4 Super Bowl championships, and it's almost like ho-hum, I would imagine. It's not, but I'm just saying the maturity level and the amount of emotion that they have is not the same as when the Immaculate Reception just a few years earlier in '72, or they first win the first one in 4 and 5. So these guys had all done this several times before, and you're the rookie. You're the new kid. What was that like for you?
Well, it was a little, I don't want to say it was nerve-wracking per se. I was the last pick of the 6th round. So it was the defending Super Bowl champions. I did learn how to talk to the press real quick with that. But
the other guys didn't want to do interviews, right? So they brought you, and you're the only one that's going to answer, right?
No, I answered poorly.
Okay.
I did the unforgivable. Hey, they're asking me uncomfortable questions, and I'm going, hey, look, off the record, this is what and I see them start to write down. I thought I said off the record. Yeah, but this is news.
Yeah.
Well, off the record, I really enjoyed speaking with you today.
You learn quick.
And I was lucky I didn't say what was on my mind, because there was no off the record, and that was not a rude awakening, but I always wondered why when they asked Joe Paterno, hey, you're going to beat these guys tomorrow? Well, if this team plays up to their potential and we play up to our potential, it could be one whale of a game. It's a answer without saying anything.
Yeah. What was it like in terms of off the field and after practices? The city, Green Bay, Denver, now Kansas City. I think Pittsburgh rivals all of them in that that local community. They kind of know you, they own you, so to speak. And I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just like, we're family. You're a Steeler, and I know everything that you do, right? I know your kicking percentage. I know what your leg strength is. I know that everything after 54 yards is questionable, but 53 and in, your nails. They really take ownership of that team and really know everything about you, don't they?
And you kind of said it, even though you didn't. I'm not sure it was intentional. We're family.
Yep.
That was the Pirates. We are family.
Yep.
and they were winning World Series at the time. And because the Steelers and the Pirates were in the same stadium, different locker rooms in the stadium,
Sure.
they would have they'd have practice. They'd also have a keg of beer on tap, which
Yeah.
was kind of nice, going over to their locker room and having a cold one. But one of the great thrills, one of the joys of my life was I'd go out and shag batting practice before Pirates games, which was great. I'm getting to catch line drives from Willie Stargell and Dave Parker, and I'm out there in the outfield shagging batting practice prior to the game. Now excuse me, bugs. Again, you're around some great professional athletes, but you're also there as they would come out to football games or beforehand and catch footballs for Bradshaw.
Yeah.
I mean, it was that kind of family community. So yeah, it's a small town, but it's a big package in a small town.
Yeah.
And they did focus on things you had to do. And as I said, I'm learning from tremendous leaders on the field. I was just a dumb rookie, and I would have been a rookie on that team till my 8th season, probably.
Yeah.
And that's how, but you felt like they could win anytime they wanted to, and they really did. Are we supposed to tell war stories?
Let's do it.
My first game should have been my last game. It was Monday Night Football, defending Super Bowl champion, Howard Cosell, Monday Night Football, doing the announcing. And we're up in New England. Ron Earhart was the coach. And my first game was going to be my last game. I had missed a field goal and an extra point during the game. So it's 13-13 going into overtime. And Howard Cosell is just ripping me a new belly button. And the rookie kicker in his final game with the Pittsburgh Steelers, that sort of thing. So they get down to a 43 or so yard field goal in overtime, where the dumbass rookie had missed a field goal and an extra point. And I find out later they're not sure they're going to send me out for the field goal.
Wow.
I mean, it was 4th and 3 or 4, but they send me out. I guess Franco or Jack Ham, send them out. Penn Staters,
Sure,
taking care of one another.
That's right.
They send me out, and of course the other team calls it timeout. Now let me say flat out, timeouts are the absolute best thing a coach can do for the other team's kicker. It gives you extra time to make sure the spot is good, the area is good. You can take a deep breath, say, forget everything you're ever taught. Just keep your head down and follow through. Well, during this timeout, Jack Lambert, who had never said a word to me in the 8 weeks I have known him, the mini camps, the 6 weeks of training camp, the only interaction I had with Jack Lambert was I had brought a banjo to training camp and was playing it one evening. He walks into the doorway of the room, and
that's it. He just shakes his head.
The banjo went back in the case closed, under the bed. Never played it again at camp.
Never played it again.
The only thing I did was pick up a guitar, learn how to play guitar, and I would play with Bradshaw and a couple of the other guys. And I knew Lambert couldn't shake me off on that one.
Yeah.
So Lambert had not said a word to me, but he's on protection. He's on the left wing of protection.
He's the wing. Yeah, he's a wing.
And he comes back during the timeout, and I'm going, this can't be good. And he walks up, Matt, we got all the confidence in the world in you, and walks back to the huddle.
Yeah.
And we make the field goal. everyone's happy and so on. And I've been telling this story for a lot of years. Randy Grossman, a tight end, said, "You know the end of that story?" And I go, "Yeah. We made the field goal, and I kicked for a lot of years." He goes, "No, Lambert came back to the huddle. What'd you say to him?" "I told him we had confidence in him." "Well, why'd you say that?" "I don't know. If he misses it, I'm gonna rip his freaking head off." Now, he said the right thing to me.
Yep.
And he said the right thing to his teammates.
Yep.
And that's what made him a great player. And that team also taught me you don't have to like the person you're working with, you're working next to. But you do have to work as a team when the game, you don't have to hang out with them after practice. You don't even have to like them in the locker room. But when the game comes around, they are your teammates, and you're there for the common purpose of winning the football game. And that's what they taught me.
Explain to someone who may not know the difference between, it doesn't matter where you are in a ball game, as long as you've got the ball and you have a chance to score, there are certain mentalities on teams that you've been with. I imagine the Steelers was one of them. I think the Giants was another, that they knew that no matter where we were, we knew how to win, and we knew that we could win. And more often than not, they did it, where the other team would give you an opening or make a mistake. And next thing you know, Steelers win, Giants win, and X, Y, and Z teams lose.
I think that has to do a lot with the attitude of the team leaders and certainly the coaches, in that when on all the teams I played on that were successful, and most of them were, they settled for field goals. I mean, that team, when they would drive down the field, if they had to come off and then send the field goal team out, they were pissed. They were really upset. And Mike Webster is going through a 13-play drive, and now he has to snap for the field goal. Especially him. He's tired, sore, and they want to come away with something. So the teams that settled for field goals were the successful teams, because they wanted to score a touchdown. I wanted to score a touchdown. The teams that the place kicker is the MVP, or we're playing for the field goal, those teams generally are not very good. And if you're a place kicker and you make a game-winning kick and your team's 3-13, who cares?
Right. Yeah.
That's not kicking under pressure per se. And and this is another thing that I try to really impress upon folks, is that when you kick a field goal, I believe that's the most team-oriented play in the game. Defense has to win the ball. Offense has to drive the ball down into position. Every single player on the 9-man front has to make a good block. They can't screw up at all, not one little bit. Because the snap, the hold, the kick is the least important. If you don't have a good snap, a good hold, and perfect protection, you're never going to make one kick. And so I always try to, hey, when I miss, it's my fault. But when we make a field goal, it's to me one of the biggest team-oriented events out there. And I can't say enough about all the guys up front who are blocking for you. I mean, you want to know who's going to make a football team, a pro football team? Look who's on field goal protection in the first week of training camp. That's the team they never want to change.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, they don't want to do anything about that. And having Jack Lambert on it, did you remember the 76 Super Bowl against the Cowboys where Charlie Waters bumps into Roy Jarrell after he misses, and he says something to him, and Lambert falls to the ground? That to me is the epitome of what teamwork's like. You don't even talk to my guy. Now, he didn't shake his head like he did with you in the banjo. He did more than that. He threw him to the ground, and no one from the Cowboys did anything to fire back at Lambert. I thought it was a real interesting take that and that was the thing. And I'm not sure how much Roy and Jack
palled around after games. I don't think very much, but
Didn't matter.
that was his teammate.
Yep, that's
And
my guy.
that's what he was defending.
Yeah.
Clay Matthews, I had to ask Clay for help one time in the game with the Browns. I had broken. we had run a badly designed fake field goal that didn't fool anyone, and I had broken a whole bunch of ribs, and I had to play the next game, which means you can't take a deep breath. You've had them before.
Yep.
You can't take a deep breath. You can't cough, sneeze, or otherwise.
Don't even think about sneezing.
This Chris Dishman from the Oilers in the next game. Now, I'm in the injury report, so every time after every kickoff, after every extra point or field goal, he'd come by and throw the elbow into the ribs, and I couldn't take it. And Clay Matthews, to his credit, I said, Clay, usually I'll fight my own battles, but I'm kind of on my own here. He said something to Chris. He didn't come near me the rest of the game.
Yep.
But that's hey, Lawrence Taylor was on almost the exact same story with Lawrence Taylor with my first game with the Giants. We get down to a field goal. He's on the left wing, and he comes back during the timeout. He goes, "You take all the time you want. There ain't no one getting in here." And that's kind of the way those that's why they're great players. That's why they're team leaders.
Yeah. Well, you were in some big games. Now, the Niners, do you want to talk about them or you want to move on?
Oh, it was maybe the games prior during the season. The Niners was a Monday night football game that we they beat us, and I think the coaches realized, at least in that game, that set the stage for the playoff game because we lost. It was a low-scoring game, as most of our games were, and we were trying to score touchdowns when we probably should have been kicking field goals at that time. I just remember at the end of the game, I think Ronnie Lott got in Phil Simms' head, or got to him after the game, was saying something to him, and Phil took exception to it. I'm proud to say I was one of the first guys to dive into the fray, even though I didn't have any effect on any of the scuffling that went on. I just you can see me running in the background. I'm taking care of my teammates.
Yep.
Doing that. Same thing with Buffalo. They had beaten us. It was a kind of a cold, wet day, and we kicked a field goal, and I mean it just snuck in the left upright. And Bruce Smith goes, "Man, you almost missed that." I go, "I know, wasn't that amazing? It still went through. Oh my gosh!"
Yeah.
And he looked at me like I was absolutely insane, but knew that what he was trying to do was, just get in your way. So the Niners game, the championship game, it truly was one of those great football games. I think you've been a part of several where no one made any mistakes, really. It was really, that was the Super Bowl. The 49ers game, every play that we made with the Giants, we needed. Whether it was a third down catch by Mark Bavaro or, that fumble at the very end of the game. LT was the only one anywhere near that fumble, but he was there. He was near the ball, which is what you're taught as the youngest football player. Go to the ball. Wherever it is, go to the ball. And he was there. So many great plays by so many teammates in both of those games. The thing that I'm most proud of in both of those games weren't the field goals. I made 2 tackles in the Super Bowl. And I think I was tied for most special teams tackles in that. No one expects you to make. There we go. How many kickers have a tackling football card?
Yeah.
Now
I would correct you, Matt. You got to get your head on the other side. You got to you lead in front, not behind. But you know what? You got the guy down. I mean, come on.
Well, that was wrestling. I wrestled in high school and junior high, and one of the things that I learned, I would stay right behind the kickoff coverage, like within 5 yards. I would run down there.
Okay.
And you could see where everything to me happened in slow motion, but you could see where the hole was. And I would just jump in the hole and get big. And all the running back saw was another team's jersey.
Yep.
And the number.
Yep.
By the time they realized it was just a dumbass kicker, they had already used 2 or 3 moves that I would never react to because I didn't know they were great moves. So I was still standing in the same spot, but they had geared down, and I would always tackle them high like a wrestler and wrap up and get entangled. When we played Herschel Walker, and he was with Minnesota, I want to say at the time, they said you can't tackle him high. If you try to do that, he's just going to. So I tried to hit him low, hit him around the knees when he came through. When you watch the film of that, it was like I was superimposed on the field. He never broke stride. And he was it was called back for a penalty, but I think he was the only one who ever went downtown on me.
Really?
Scored a touchdown, but like I said, it was called back for a penalty somewhere else. But I never affected anything in his stance. So for me to try to tackle low was insane. If you ever want to watch a funny video, watch the Adam Sandler Lonesome Kicker. I'm in a few shots in that getting blasted. Yeah.
Well, one of the things that I learned, you're kind of the safety. You get to read the room and see where the play is going, and you could tell pretty early, okay, this is a left or right middle return, and you just kind of plug the hole. Did it ever happen to you? Because it did with me on some punts where the guy is coming, and I know he wants to go right or he wants to go left, but there's somebody that I can't see while I'm running down the field. And David Meggett did this once with me. He just ran right into me. I didn't have a choice. If I didn't tackle him, that would have been embarrassing. But he looked at his options. He wasn't going to go left or right, so he just ran right into me, got in the fetal position, and I get credit for a tackle.
Nice.
You just being in the right place at the right time on occasion meant, oh crap! I thought I was going to break this for at least a big one, if not a TD, and then there's number 9. There's number 3 in the way. What the heck?
Well, I was quick. I ran a 4.640 or 4.54 40 my rookie season.
Very nice.
And ran a 4.6 my last season. But there were 300-pound guys who were faster than me.
Yeah.
That's frightening. And so I realized I'm not really going to I'm not physically armored enough to really be protected from anything. I don't want to get hit at full speed because every time I've been hit, I've been hurt. And I felt just the best way for me to avoid a lot of trouble was to be right up there. And I was trying to make the tackle because I've always said, you don't want to go to the sideline and face Jack Lambert or Lawrence Taylor and say, all right, I didn't want to get hurt.
Yeah.
Well, and that's why I let him go.
Carl Banks is the hardest hit I ever took, and you played with Carl. You know what that type of man is like. He's unbelievable. We mentioned family a little bit earlier when we were talking about the Steelers. I'm going to go back with you a little bit. Once you join Cleveland, there's a chip on the shoulder of a Cleveland fan. They love their team with as much passion that anybody out there, but they're still waiting for that next time in their athletic history, apart from the late 50s and the early 60s when Otto Graham and Jim Brown and Paul Brown and everybody that was a part of the great tradition there. Let's talk a little bit about the greatness, but yet the frustration of being a Cleveland Brown when you were there.
Well, my rookie year, we won a Super Bowl with the Steelers, and
Yes.
I thought every team won the Super Bowl at one point. The neatest thing that season was not getting the Super Bowl ring. Oh, yeah, that's nice. That's cool. It was seeing myself on a bubblegum card. This is great. I can put this in the spokes of my tires now. Make the
You
great
have a
memories.
bike. You've got one now from your soccer days. Good for you.
But what I realized playing the 80s with the Browns is they were really good teams. I think we made the playoffs 6 of the 9 years I was
Yeah.
there.
Yep.
3 championship games. What you needed was a little bit of magic. You can't put your finger on it. You can't really say what that is, but a bounce has to go your way. You have to create something with maybe a fake punt, fake field, just some sort of magic to make it happen, because just being a great team like the Steelers doesn't always work. And I felt that we were that close. And like, I do know, just because I went to the Giants later, when we lost to the Broncos in the championship game, the Giants didn't want to play against the Browns. When the Browns and the Broncos were playing, the Giants were all rooting for the Broncos because we had beaten the Giants earlier that season and we matched up really well against the Giants. But John Elway and the Broncos were the raspberry seed in my wisdom tooth. And we just couldn't get by them, couldn't shake them, and couldn't find that little bit of magic. I also think the NFL had something to say to it. Marty Schottenheimer, his name would have never fit on a Super Bowl ring, so they couldn't allow him to win a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Now, how embarrassing would that be to the NFL if if a Schottenheimer ever got a Super Bowl ring?
Yeah, you got to put half his name on one side of the ring and then the other on the opposite side. Oh, 81 to 89, though, you're right. There's some great teams. You got there before Bernie, though. Was Bernie the difference? What was it that?
Well, it was a different character team. Brian Sipe was a smaller quarterback, like Aaron Rodgers, say, and but he ruled that offensive line with an iron rod, and they really respected him. He also set the social team for the team, the players, in that, hey, we're all going out as a team.
Okay.
And he was really a terrific team leader. Bernie came in, and I don't know, I think he expanded upon Brian's tradition of being a team leader and getting the team going. And they were both terrific quarterbacks. I'm pretty sure this was a preseason game. I say this because are we supposed to tell stories on these things?
Of course you are. Yes.
2 things happened, and I'm pretty sure it was this game. One, Top Gun had just come out.
Okay.
And everyone's, doing the jet fighter, Tom Cruise, everything else. The Raiders, my brother was kicking for the Raiders, and they tried a 65-yard field goal at the end of halftime. So, of course, they have a returner under the goalposts that they're going to run back if field goal doesn't make it.
Right.
Well, on a blocked punt, blocked field goal, or a field goal that they're returning like a punt, it's a free-for-all. A lot of times it's payback, but it was still preseason. So everyone's everywhere. This guy's running back, and all the Browns are trying, or all the I'm saying the Browns are running it back.
Right.
And you see Clay Matthews, who was on protection, he's running around the field in airplane mode. He's got his arms out. He's doing things. And all of a sudden, you can see on the film, he has missile lock on my brother. I mean, it was my brother's looking this way. He's coming from that way. And you could see he had turned and was coming in for the missile attack. And he saw it was my brother at the last second, and he waved off and hit the next guy behind my brother, put him in the hospital. I mean, they took him off on a stretcher, and Clay saying to me, hey, tell your brother he owes me a beer. I just saved his life. And when we watched the film, when Chris watched the film, he called Clay immediately and said, "Oh my God, thank you for not killing me."
Yeah, for ruining my career and putting me.
Right.
You
So
put my
at the
teammate
at
in the
the end of the
hospital.
game, the preseason, no one wants to go into overtime. So we're trying like a 45-yarder to win the game at the end of the game, so it doesn't go into overtime. And the Raiders, Matt Millen especially, he drove me crazy. But the Raiders are going, hey, Barr, we're going to make a lot of noise. We're going to jump up in the air, but don't miss it. We're not rushing. If it's a bad snap, we'll give the holder plenty of time to put it down. Don't miss this kick or we're going to kill you. And that was one of the more nervous I was, because generally when they talk to you from across the line of scrimmage, they're saying nasty things and whatnot. But this time they're just going, we're going to make a lot of noise. It's going to look like we're rushing, but we're not.
Don't ever tell anyone that we said it this way, but we want you to end this game for us.
I really, I don't know if you can try harder, but I really concentrated. Yeah. I'd really like to make this kick.
It'd be good for everybody if we did.
It will be good for everyone.
Well, the drive was at home, and then the fumble was on the road, and those two games are just, amazing moments where Bronco fans are going, I can't believe we were able to do this.
It epitomizes the heartbreak of Cleveland.
Yeah, and the Browns fans are going, I can't believe we now the first half in the second game and the one in Denver, they blew you out of the water in terms of scoring and moving the ball around, and it was going to be a romp. Congratulations to the offense, and the defense, for keeping you in the game and giving you a chance to win it there at the very end. It was tough to lose both of those, obviously, but from a football historical perspective, Matt, you were in both of those games. So that had to be, amazing.
Well, you don't ever think about it at the time. You're just trying to win the game. You're trying to be a part of something that's good. And like all things, you remember incidents and what you don't ever want to look at what might have been. Simply because it's just misspent energy.
Yeah.
It was frustrating. That's why I'm not a fan of the Broncos, but that's also shows you, and the Broncos get destroyed in each of those Super Bowls.
Oh, destroyed. Absolutely obliterated. Yeah.
And that's it's a cruel world. And things like that.
You could add 2 more rings. Hey, do me a favor. The picture that Logan has up here now, I know a lot of players couldn't stand it, but I would have to say that playing on this type of AstroTurf back in the day, it couldn't have been any easier for you. It was such you couldn't use a tee, but you might as well be on one with the short turf that you've got right there. Was that a kicker's dream come true, or was that a problem?
Yes and no. It was a smooth surface, but you also had to deal with the paint made it slippery. I mean, the paint just do you drive a motorcycle ever?
A little, not much. I wasn't a motorcycle guy, but you're slipping around is what you're telling me. Yeah.
When you hit the white lines on the road on a rainy day, going around a turn or something, the crosswalks, that's really it's really can be slippery. And so with all the logos and stuff that they put out there, even the hash marks, you're conscious of that. Just make sure that you're not planning on them, things like that. Yeah, it was effective. I was a mutter though, but you say something interesting about the fields. Those fields, that's why there's so many injuries. The fields in especially Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, and Cincinnati, they were cookie cutter stadiums. They were both baseball and football stadiums. Yep. So they had the inserts for the bases, which were just metal plates with turf on top of it and maybe a rim. In Philadelphia, they had a gap maybe this big sometimes where second base was, where
Yeah,
guys
metal. Philly didn't have metal. They had a 2x4 that they wrapped turf around, and they would just hammer it in and then remove it for the Philly
right.
games.
It was dangerous, and so a lot of knee injuries. And you knew from soccer, the pounding on that turf, it was like running on slightly padded cement. It was running on slightly padded cement. So It wasn't necessarily a great advantage over the long term. I excuse me, the best fields, I always thought Green Bay was fantastic. At least the half game. I think at that time they played half their games in Green Bay and half their games in Milwaukee. But most of the fields we kicked on were the combination baseball, football field.
Yeah.
And you never knew what you were going to get or until you knew when the schedule was out, because they wouldn't put the grass down over the infield. So Miami, San Francisco, Minnesota, all were baseball fields that if you got them early in the season, you'd kick on dirt, mud, or whatever. And I think that's why it took a while for soccer style place kickers to become more prominent. The straight on kickers, especially on those really, really bad fields, mud fields, they plant heel toe and are coming through straight. You can see from that picture, I'm coming in from an angle where the side of my heel is hitting first. If that's a muddy field, I'm just sliding right into the ball at that point. And you have to be, when the fields and the surfaces got better, that's when soccer style kickers became more and more prominent.
Matt Stover did something I thought was very interesting. He was completely honest with me. And I had come from Atlanta, and we were talking about Morton Anderson. And he asked me, he said, what's Mort like? I go, he's a good dude. He goes, well, he better be. I go, I'm sorry, I don't know. Well, doggone it, he got to kick indoors for his whole career. No wonder he's an 82% kicker. I had to kick, and Matt was in Cleveland just like you were, so he knows the bad field, the mud, the wind, the cold, the heat. He had everything. He didn't get to kick in 72 indoors all the time. So Matt really let me know his opinion of Morton and just the luxury kick inside.
Did he tell you why I was kicking in the Super Bowl instead of he was on the practice squad?
Stover was, yeah.
So it could have very easily been him there. But no, Matt's a funny guy. He was on that committee to move the extra points back 32 yard to the 32-yard spot,
right?
Which keeps his record intact of consecutive extra points.
Yeah. Well,
I don't know if that had anything to do with it.
Yeah. Don't let anyone fool you. There's the kickers that have agenda, right? Nick Lowry was at the Hall of Fame every year, wanting to be a member.
He had his dossier.
Yeah, everyone has their personal motives and everything like that.
That's got to be a grass field?
That's the Super Bowl game, right there.
Okay, it looks like one of the turf fields with all the rubberized pellets.
Well, no, you got to play in the Last of Mohicans. That's there in Tampa.
I'm a little miffed. These guys are 2 yards behind the
Thank you.
while I'm hitting it.
You beat me to it. I'm going to say, hey, who's your special teams coach for this?
That angers me.
They should be right at the 33,
34-yard line. Their knees should be over the line.
Yes.
That's okay. I made the tackle.
Well, someone had to make the tackle. They were too far behind and should have been coached up right. So, New York, tell me about that experience. You're only there 3 years, right? 90, 91, 92. But Parcells is the guy. You get to meet him again in New England. They kind of knew what they were doing there, didn't they? It was going on at that time.
Well, they had a good team, a really good team. That there were three teams that were also, all the teams are within that much of one another, but San Francisco was coming up to Super Bowl wins in a row, and Buffalo was just playing lights out, scoring a million points. And there was one team, the Eagles. Giants always beat Washington. Washington always beat the Eagles, and the Eagles seemed to always beat the Giants.
Yep.
Regardless of how good any one of those teams were, there was just something about those rivalries that couldn't put your finger on it, but they had the number, whatever it was, whatever mojo was going on there. So as I said, that season, we had Belichick, defensive coordinator, and a lot of future head coaches on that staff. But that was maybe the difference between Marty Schottenheimer and, say, Bill Parcells. And I played for, as I said, a lot of great coaches. But Schottenheimer would come in, and he's a great coach. He was a great coach to take a team and organize them and get into the playoffs, because he was very detail-oriented. He got the team focused on the details, not to make the penalties and mistakes and things like that. But when it came to the playoffs, Marty would come into the locker room at halftime and say, "Okay, men, stay with the system. I know they're going to break. I know, we got to keep, plugging away as we're doing it, because we have them right where we want them." And it always kind of, I question that. Chuck Noll rarely said anything, but with Marty, the other team that's in the playoff is also pretty good.
Yep.
And staying with their system. And I didn't know whether it was right or wrong. Consequently, we lost those championship games, if only by a little. And I don't know if that's something you can hang on Marty or just hang on the players. I think we all take a certain amount of responsibility to what did we need to do to get over the edge. With Parcells, you got in the locker room at halftime and he'd go, "Men, DBs, get me the ball. If you get me the ball, I'll win you the game." And it was not saying for the DBs to take unnecessary risks. It was for the DBs, instead of knocking the ball down, to intercept it if they could.
Okay.
And I think that was somewhat of a motivation for the guys. And Parcells also, I think he did a fake punt in the 49ers game that gained like 30, 40 yards. Now, everything worked out perfectly for the fake punt because it was snapped right to the up back. And the 49ers only had 10 men on the field, and it happened to be the one guy in the middle.
Oops.
But the play still had to be called.
Sure.
And it was called. So, the difference is that minute in those games, but, Parcells did it twice and Marty got close.
Parcells was amazing to me on fourth downs, how he would move a punter, or even if it was a field goal attempt, he'd have Hostetler go up under center and really force a timeout by the opponent, or run a fake, or think that you're running a fake just to make you think, right? He was great at that. Belichick would later on, I think, mimic and copy a lot of that philosophy, but he would really make you on a fourth down situation.
We practiced a lot of situations.
Yep.
So that the whole team was on the same page. Third down, no timeouts. Make the first down. What do you do?
Right.
You down it. Third down, no timeouts. You don't make the first down. What do you do? And everyone was on the same page, and we would practice different situations all the time so that we could do it under pressure. And he would usually do the situations at the end of practice when everyone was tired, because that is one of the situations. You're tired, you're out of breath, you still got to think. And I always kind of admired that. One silly thing also is he let people take on their own responsibility. We played a game in Miami where one of those torrential downpours, boom, and it was still baseball season, so it was the dirt infield.
Yeah.
So the rain stopped. The game hadn't started, and they went out and put kitty litter all over the infield to dry it up. As soon as they did that, the rain came down again. Boom. And it was now like quicksand. It was this thick, viscous, heavy mud that was very difficult to. So we're trying to hit our kickoffs into the middle of that so that they can't run out of, type of thing.
Yep.
But we went out for an extra point, and it was just a bloody miracle that I made it. There was no earthly. I slid it forward into the ball, and it got up a little bit, and just barely. This is an extra point, just barely clearing the upright. So I went to the special teams coach, and the infield ended on the hash. And I asked the special teams coach, can we snap the ball from the hash, go to the left hash, but 1 yard outside the hash was grass again. So he would snap it at an angle, but we need an unbalanced line. So move the tackle over to the other side. And the special teams coach, hey, you got to clear this with Parcells. I can't do this. So I go to Parcells during the game. I go, hey, Bill, I need to do something on an extra point. Just do it. He didn't want to know what it was. He didn't care what it was. We had a plan. We executed it. It was now my responsibility if it worked or it didn't work. He didn't ask what it was. He didn't ask what we were trying to do. He just said, well, do it. And I think that's what made him one of the great coaches is he trusted everyone to do their job and then a little bit more. And it worked. The linemen, God, they know what they're doing more so than I'd know. So it was just one guy changing locations, and his blocking responsibilities flipped, if you will.
Yeah.
Now, Miami saw that. They thought it was going to be a fake, and then they did the same thing, but instead of unbalancing the line, they had a short corner, and we almost blocked one of their kicks because they didn't unbalance the line so that it was equal on either side of the football.
Right. Interesting.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, I get it. I know some of our folks.
But that's what made Parcells different.
Yeah. Well, I think too, Bill was tough in many respects, but maybe tough early, and then would release some of the pressure that he had on you once you were one of his guys. You mentioned that trust factor. I think that he had that. I mean, Lawrence would say that Bill Parcells is the reason I got to play for as long as I did, because no one else would have been able to handle me the way that he did. But Bavaro is different from Leonard Marshall, who's different from Banks.
And he treated everyone different, Harper.
Yeah, right.
If Lawrence Taylor fell asleep in the meeting, he'd get him a pillow.
Right.
If I fell asleep in a meeting,
he'd give you an apple and a roadmap.
He'd fine me $5,000. If you fell asleep, he'd fire you.
Yeah.
It wasn't anything, but you knew he told you exactly what he was going to do. If you fall asleep, I'm going to fire your ass.
Yeah. Yeah, but Lawrence, no. Here's the pillow, and keep it quiet out there. We need to keep him as happy as we possibly can be. Well, the Super Bowl. Go ahead.
I don't know if this is actually true. There is one LT story that I think deserves mention. LT knew everyone's role on the defense.
Yeah. Okay.
He knew every play. He knew every player, and what they were supposed to do in any given situation. So early in his career, and I think it was under Belichick, he they call the defensive play, and he sacks the quarterback, and everyone's cheering, gets back to the sideline. And Belichick is, great sack, LT, but we don't have that play. You're supposed to cover the running back coming out of the backfield. A couple series later, same thing. They call the defense. He rushes, sacks the quarterback, and now Belichick's a little miffed. And LT, we don't have that play. You got to cover the running back coming out. You got the sack, but you have the running back coming out of the backfield, or whatever his assignment was. Happens a third time towards the end of the game. Sack, everyone's happy. Belichick is livid. Starts LT, and he's like, ugh. And LT goes, without getting angry himself, just goes, "Hey, Bill, that play works. We might want to put that in the playbook." And it was his way of saying, "Hey, yes, that was the play you called. This is the play that works."
Yeah. You may say I missed my assignment, give me a 0, but I got 3 sacks and they've had to punt, and we're going to win this football game.
Right.
He was amazing at being able to do that, at kind of reading on the fly what he thought that opposing offenses were going to do.
He changed the game the way Mel Blount did. He changed the rules. Wasn't LT one of the first who started trying to strip the ball on the quarterback coming in?
He's one of the first to get away with being able to do that arm swat and get the ball out. Yeah. Absolutely. He was amazing at that, as you well know. I just thought his speed, he was a powerful dude. I remember having to hit him once, and Carl Banks, like I said, I've never hit anyone like that. That dude was amazing. But Lawrence's difference to me was his just flat out knowing where the ball was going to be and getting a defender down. An offensive guy down, and and making the right angle on countless occasions from a run perspective. But I know Ron Jaworski still has shivers, and he sees him in his sleep. Joe Theismann. There isn't a quarterback in the league that wasn't absolutely fearful of where he was going to be and what angle he was going to take on him.
Smart, fast, and a great teammate. And once again, that's. There were a lot of team leaders on the Giants, and certainly he was one of them.
Yep, absolutely. Well, you got to say some great ones. Your last 3 years in New England, you were reunited with Belichick. He wasn't on the staff then, but
he was on the staff for I think the first year. No, he was in Cleveland at that point.
Cleveland, yeah. Talk a little bit about ending your career there, your last couple of years there with New England.
I mean, again, I got to kick in another miserable area, miserable field and weather and things like that. But it was fun being part of a team that's successful. I think the highlight for me personally was one of the stupidest things ever. We were playing that looked like it might have been that game. It was cold and miserable playoff game. The field was just tore to pieces, and we got down to like a 48 or 49 yard field goal into the open end, and Parcells says, "Can you make it?" And I go, "Probably not." And just like that, he goes, "What are you talking about?" I go, "I was 1 of 5 in pregame. I kicked here for 10 years. If you want to take a 20% chance, I'm more than willing to give you my best effort on this, but it's low percentage. Your call, because if we miss this, the game's over." We were down by 10 points with not much time left. So it's like it was 4th and 2. So I figured 4th and 2 is easier to make than a 20% chance on this. So he gets up another, we make the first down, and he gets up another 5 or 6 yards. He goes, "Can you make this one?" At that point, yes. And fortunately we made it. It was still pretty dicey. Yeah. But what was amazing was we had to kick the onside kick because we needed 10 points to tie it up.
Right. You need another possession.
And needed the miracle. You know what it is for a known onside kick situation. Your odds of getting the football are like 3%. I think they statistically show. I wanted to do one of those 2 little bounces and 1 big bounce. I completely flubbed the kick. I mean, I almost missed the ball, but I hit it and it spun like a top, crossed at 10.5 yards and spun back 5 yards. We recovered an onside kick that was maybe the greatest onside kick of all time, and it was a complete accident. And
like you couldn't pay, no one could pay you to do it again, right? It just
no one could do that kick, and it was, no reason to tell a lie. It was a complete miss. I slipped getting to the ball, and I'm going, oh God, I just missed the ball. But it worked out pretty darn good because it went. You couldn't have drawn up a more perfect onside kick.
And nobody knows, and nobody's the wise one except for
the story.
Just
there are stories I won't tell.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll keep that for another time.
Can we talk about our health study?
You want to do that?
Yeah, it's simply because these are the games like this that made me want to get involved with the Harvard football players' health study. And it's simply because what I try to tell them, I mean, here I am, I'm 40 years old. I'm still wearing a single bar. Was that a single bar then? No, it's not. But I'm still wearing the same shoulder pads I was given in high school or in junior high school. They're junior high school pads from the Neshaminy School District. Don't tell anyone.
Matt, the fact that you didn't grow any from the time you were in junior high school speaks volumes to me right now.
But that being said, my equipment in total weighed 10 pounds.
Yeah.
Your average running back wears 35 pounds worth of equipment. So every time I got hit, I got hurt usually. And in 17 years of pro football, high school, college football, so let's say 25 years of really good football programs. I mean, top coaches in their line. Not once in all those years wearing no equipment was I ever taught how to tackle somebody, how to be tackled, how to block somebody, how to do anything football related in all that time. And why I got involved was I try to describe it. How many car accidents do you have to be in to get hurt? You can be in 1,000 car accidents, fender benders and whatnot, but sometimes all you have to be in is one where the car gets obliterated. Every time I got hit, I got obliterated. And concussions, especially in playing pro soccer, you have lots of, I really wanted to see what the study would produce with concussions, effective concussions, recovery, brain health, and things like that. And it's been such a treat to be involved with all you guys in that because you get to see the research as it's happening. You get to talk to the researchers about what they're doing. And I'm always gobsmacked, if you will, listening to these super intelligent doctors and clinicians and researchers talk about the details, the different things and it makes, I don't know how it is for you, but it makes me want to read more and learn more about what's going on with our bodies and how we can preserve our lives and health after football is over.
Yeah, I appreciated when it first started, and for those who are joining us that aren't aware, the Pro Football Players Association has funded a study, and Harvard is the one who is behind it. And as Matt said, the researchers there are looking at different aspects of playing days, post-playing days, etc., not just for head injuries, or what everybody's familiar with
Yes,
now.
whole body health, certainly.
Yeah. We look at diabetes. We look at heart conditions. We look at obesity problems, or guys that have had knee operations. There are different ways of gauging your long-term health, and playing in the league for 17 years like Matt did, or a guy that's only played in a couple of games. How could that affect the future? And one of the things that I thought was interesting, Matt, is we're researching right now to look at what the old guys are going through, and hopefully find some answers, or at least look at different ways of how that helps the guys that are playing right now. And taking that and trying to find ways of helping kids that haven't even started playing yet to keep them safer or healthier. And I've said it before like this: if there's a girl that gets in a traffic accident and hits her head against the windshield, is there some information that we can gather that can help her? Then we're doing something right. And so that's the part about it that I look forward to, in that it's just not for football players, but it does mainly focus on that. But it can affect the whole general population in some respects to where it's beneficial.
You got that. I mean, that's also part of what the team is about. Now, maybe the focus isn't on concussions or head injuries as much as it was when I first started, but just seeing the statistical correlation between ACL injuries and heart health. Now, why would those be related other than that they are? That now a gymnast who gets an ACL, or a soccer player gets an ACL, has to be more cognizant of their heart health later on in life and do things to affect that. I think they're some of the really giant benefits of this study. Is I'm not sure we would have ever known that had it not been for this study.
Yeah, we've asked some tough questions, and there's some areas that, hey, let's go down this path, that maybe we're not ready to go down yet, or we're going to wait for a little while before we get some solutions in different areas. I know that that's been part of my curiosity of this, where they ask us, right, Matt? The researchers will ask us, well, what do you think we should do here? What type of, we'd like to go down this path, and then we'll maybe not so much there. The engagement really keeps me fascinated with how open and yet determined people are to try to come up with some solutions and answers to questions that people haven't been able to answer yet.
And the questions are considered. That's always impresses me. That even if you ask something completely off the wall, there's some thought behind the answer that you're given, or at least, maybe that's something we can look into, but not at this time. Right. That always impresses me, when instead of it's A, B, and C, and we'll give you D, E, and F, and it's not boilerplate. It's new research on a very specific group that's giving very real, I believe, some very real and useful answers that we can all use.
Yeah, completely agree. And how they listen to a kicker and a former long snapper, Matt, that surprises me more than anything.
I'm always impressed that I get to do anything. So I take it one day at a time and say, all right, life is good.
Hey, what else keeps you busy? I know you're a big golf fan. The U.S. Open is something that just down the street from you at Oakmont. Tell us a little bit more about what keeps Matt busy nowadays.
Oh dear, with Jan.
Yes.
Nice.
It was a windy day because Jan doesn't look that. Jan looks a little chubby right there. We're not going to.
I think it's the wind blowing the jacket out.
Blowing the jacket. That's right.
Do you know why he was in the United States? Do you know why he went? He went to Montana, right?
To visit you. That's what he was there in the United States.
And how he became a kicker. I think he got a ski jumping scholarship.
Now that I didn't know, but I
go to college.
Imagine. Yeah.
And
now, go ahead.
They saw him kicking the ball around, soccer ball around, and they said, "Hey, go get me that go-getter." Who, me? And they had him kick some footballs, and there he goes, Hall of Fame place kicker,
Yeah, no kidding. Next thing you know,
coming
he's
to
on
the
the roster.
U.S. as a ski jumper.
Hey, how crazy is he then? Because if that's his mentality, I can imagine he lives his life on the edge.
Not that crazy at all, because
Okay.
he's a terrific golfer. And when he first started in the league, I think the average percentage was in the low 50% or less
Okay.
of field goals made. And
Right.
as the kickers and the fields and everything else got better, he got better with them and was always one of the leaders in the place kickers for all that time, especially kicking in the weather he got to kick in, and
Yeah.
the wind and the fields and everything else. So he's an amazing guy and truly a gentleman.
Yep. He kicked a ball that had the stripes like a college ball, the half stripes on either end of the ball. Back in 71, 2 or 3, I can't remember. It wasn't for very long, but then what I would call the naked ball that doesn't have any stripes on it. That's been the mainstay for the NFL. The college game still has it, but not the NFL.
As well, the change of the ball is amazing, and the ball that they're using today is worth 5 to 10 yards longer on the kick. They're pre-doctored, pre-juiced, and they're terrific. They explode off your foot.
Yeah,
that's good to go.
the dead ball era. But golfing for you once a week?
No, I'm looking to buy another computer. I was trying to set up a AI system to do some offline or at least off web AI stuff, just for grins and giggles. I was an electrical engineer at school, and you can't spell geek without a double E. So I always liked the toys for boys and things like that. I was in the early days of the drones, flying drones everywhere, but they really need to be controlled. I like all the technology. As a matter of fact, this whole interview was done with ChatGPT, and this is a deep fake you're looking at.
Well, it sure fooled me, didn't it? I mean, to know some of those stories, they really go inside your mind.
Well, they have my database. They have my internal database.
Yeah, yeah. Well, hey, before we go, I was asked to get your comments. Is Barry Krause stopping Mike? Is it Guman? Tell me about that story. Barry Krause.
Barry Krause and Mike Guman?
Yes.
I'm not sure I know what this story is.
Okay, I don't either. So I was just going to try to hit it before we terminated today. But
you're going to have to refresh me off the air.
Well, I didn't
know that Mike Guman was one of those truly gifted athletes. Could have played any position and well. And because he played every position and they used him in every position, I'm not sure he ever was allowed to find his niche in one.
Okay.
But just a tremendous, tremendous athlete that always amazed. The other guy I got to spend, another great athlete that everyone knows, was Bo Jackson. That we played a lot of golf together, but he was a teammate of my brother's with the Raiders.
Yeah.
And Chris said that he unquestionably would have been the greatest running back the NFL ever saw. Right. And the baseball players I know said that when he hit the ball, they've never heard the ball come off the bat quite the same sound that Bo hit it. And he got that freak injury that took him out of both sports in the hip. And in all the years after that, playing golf with him and spending a lot of time with him, not once did he ever look back and say, woe is me.
Yeah.
He was always looking ahead at the next venture, the next thing he was going to do. And I always truly admired Bo Jackson for that reason, is that, hey, greatest ever could have been if he had stayed with it, but being able to burst through the line of scrimmage and accelerate away from it. And we've all met these players who look back on their time and say, oh, what could have been, what should have been, what I could have done. And never once with Bo did he ever look back.
Yeah.
Always looking ahead.
Dion, I played with Dion for a couple of years here in Atlanta, and he was on with Rich Eisen on a show that Rich does, and who's the greatest two-sport athlete ever? And Dion says, well, Michael was a baseball player. A lot of people forget that he played there, but Vincent Bo Jackson is by far the greatest of all of them. And Rich says, why? He goes, well, Michael and I couldn't hit a curveball, and so we gladly give it over to Bo for being a guy that could do just about everything. There's a commercial that he did for Nike where he's doing the Tour de France, and he goes, "Hey, tell me about that Tour de France things, whatever." And then he's on the ice, and Gretzky skates up to the camera, and he goes, "Nah." And it's the greatest line ever. I love the commercial for poking a little fun at Bo. But he tried. Bo knows Bo knows football. Bo knows baseball. Bo knows sports. He knows Nike. What an amazing.
What's the loft on your driver?
9.
I think Bo used a 3.5 degree.
What?
Yeah, and I mean he hit his 3-iron 300 yards, but the baseball players and the hockey players, they have that that snap.
Yep.
And his ball just is amazing. I love getting in his head because he hit it a country mile. He's also the best bird dog for golf balls.
Really?
I was pretty good at finding golf balls.
Yeah.
No matter who hit them, he'd walk every single golfer to within a yard of their ball.
How about that?
Just pointing out. I don't know why, but it's things like that stick out in your mind, and just a great attitude.
Yeah. Well, one of those guys that I've never met him, but one of those guys that you just go, he gets it. He is one of the rarest of the rare, the best of the best.
I'd love to get him involved in the health study.
No kidding. But his ability, I mean, he could have medaled in the Olympics, right, in the 100, probably the 200 if he trained for it.
Did he?
Just amazing. He ran a 4:05 40 once for before track practice one day. Just did it. He pulled up at the end, and his coach said, "Would you please run the entire 40 yards and not run 36, please? Take your 2 extra steps and do it." And he did. He's just a fantastic athlete. And I'm glad you get a chance to know him. What else is going on in your life, Chris, before we go today? Give me where can people find you, or if they want to be in touch with you, what do people do?
I'm on the interwebs. And now I live in Pittsburgh, raising a family, have a grandson who just turned 5, playing soccer and baseball and having fun. Just see me around on the computers or the golf course every so often.
Do you ever get one of these little sore arms after throwing your grandson about 5 buckets of balls? Do you ever do that?
Nope.
Not yet.
I've invented a machine.
And it's a gadget that I can control from my smartphone, I would imagine, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, I can actually show you one.
Well, we appreciate your time. We're very grateful for it. And great NFL career. You had a great time in college. You got to play professional soccer before most people know what they are going to do for breakfast. And what a pleasure it is to have you as a part of our show. So thank you, Matt Barr, for being with us today.
Thank you for your patience.
Well,
I need a good book to read.
Well,
help me out.
Well, when we get all the answers, I'll help you write yours. And then
I think this is my first podcast, though.
Yeah. Well, thank you for being a part of the first broadcast. All right. We want to say thank you to everybody for being a part of the show today. Logan Landers, our producer and engineer. Thank you, Logan. Vincent Turner was not able to be with us today, but we want to invite him on for next week's show. But in the meanwhile, we want to say thank you to Matt Barr, a great kicker, a great person, and one of the NFL's finest kickers ever to be around. There's only 2 that are in the Hall of Fame, and there's certainly a few more that might get a chance later on. And hopefully we get Matt in Canton in one way, shape, or form. But thank you again for Matt being part of the show. And I'm Harper LaBelle saying thank you for tuning in to 100 Yards of Football. Our guest today obviously has been Matt Barr. Thank you for tuning in, for being a part of the show. We appreciate it greatly. Have a fantastic rest of your day.